Salve, amice, and welcome. I and my refrigerator friend and roommate greet you as we begin this very first video of Vergil's Ecloga 2. First, a bit of an explanation of how you're going to be seeing the text, which I probably should have done for Ecloga 1, but oh well, it's more than a year now since I've recorded that. But here you have it. I have generally preferred the editing of the Cambridge Green and Yellow commentary, which is what I'm using against the text that Perseus has on there. I do take the text from Perseus and then I edit it according to what the Green and Yellow has. I probably have made an error or two in there. Almost always one will make its way in there, so sorry if that pops up. So for Perseus, if Perseus has IM ending, this is the problem with typing these things up and then being swamped with stuff for months. You come back to it and you're trying to think, is it IM in the place of IN? Or IN for IM? I think it's IN for IM because we've got Alexin on the first page. But anyway, so we've got formosum instead of formosum, which I think is what Perseus had. Where Perseus has a Y, I have left the Y's in there. Where there are significant spelling differences, I've tried to always include both of the differences so that you can see them there. Of course, brackets, right slash. I've also attempted to break this up according to paragraphs and then sentence breaks. That is for the videos. So as with the previous Eclogue and with the John videos, I can't fit an entire paragraph on a single page. I would have no room to write, or you wouldn't have any ability to see because the text would have to be so tiny. So that's basically there. Eclogue 1, I think, broke down into 18 videos, and this one should break down into about 13. So there is that, the intro. Let's get started. Here is, no, we don't want the Greek one. Here's the Latin rubric that we go through, that we use each time. Let's go ahead and get started. Formosum pastor corridon ardebat Alexin, delicias domini, nec quid speraret habebat, tantum inter densos ambrosa cacumina fagus, absidue veniebat, ibi haec incondita solus montibus et silvis studio iactabat enani. And there we have it. None of this is direct discourse. That's what's coming after the colon. So we want to find our verb in the first sentence, which is here with ardebat, the BAT, are familiar, imperfect, but the third singular, active, and indicative, of course, and it means to burn. Normally when we would say this, we would think burn like in the stick is on fire, or the house is on fire. No, it's the roof is on fire. I don't get around much the popular folk, as you know. So there is that. We want to know, well, who is our subject? Formosum, we have the um right there, which is going to be an accusative, singular, and masculine neuter. We don't know yet, so that can't be it. Pastor, we have our or ending, which is a common nominative form because it's not really a proper ending, and that's going to be singular and masculine. Corridon, on right there, not really clear on what that is. And then we have Alexin, in, which is our Greek borrowed accusative. So accusative, singular, it's supposed to be two C's. And masculine, because Alexin is a man's name. And I'll get around to the meaning of Alexin in a minute and the unclarity in that. So since we have an accusative here, ardebat will only want to take one object without a conjunction, which we do not have here. That means that formosum is going to be modifying Alexin and therefore also masculine. So draw that right through the verb. And that just leaves corridon. Corridon could be modified by this, but since we have Alexin as a clear Greek, should probably add that in, Greek accusative, corridon really has to be our subject. So nominative, singular, masculine with pastor, telling us who corridon is. All right, so what's going on? We've got pastor, which means shepherd. Corridon is a proper name, and this name is it comes from the Greek word. I should probably write that down for you first. So that would be that's an English D. Sorry. From corridus. It's interesting that the S is lost when it comes into Latin, or I should say the sigma, and this word means like a crested lark, sort of bird, which, a flighty creature as that is, will make sense according to the character that we see from Corydon going forward. As for Alexin, I was not able to locate the origin of this word, whether it is a strictly Latin name or it is a Greek origin name. So this is just a guess, and a guess on how it is spelt. Since it's Alex, probably has something to do with Alexander. And come to think of it, I forgot to look up what Alexander means. All right, so that the meaning, that my guess meaning based on Alexander is like Alex and Ander would be there. So I forget what Alex means, and then Ander is of course man. So anyway, we'll come to that in a note. Sorry, I thought I was ready. So Corydon, Ardebat, and then we have the direct object by Corydon. So Pastor first was in burning with, of course, the way that we should understand that is like, it was on fire. But no, he was emotionally burning, desiring Alexin. And then for Monsom, this word means some person or thing that is beautifully formed. We could almost say handsome, but there are other words that are used for handsome. So I'm just going to write it down as its meaning, beautifully formed. Of course, you get the word form right there for English. And I should probably note also that this is another thing I'm not sure about. If I should take Alexin directly into English transliterated, or if I should assume the Greek sigma ending at the beginning. As a Greek ending, so Alexin should be a Greek word. Couldn't find it to confirm that Alexis is the nominative. But I'm going to go with Alexis right now, but only for lack of certainty of what else to do with the name. So Alexis. And then we move on to our next line, delicias domini, no verb in there, nec. So that's connected to the rest of this. This is going to be its own sidebar, if you will. So delicias, we have as right there for an accusative plural. It's going to be feminine. And then domini, I right there for genitive, singular, and masculine. Domini clearly owning delicias. So this is plural. What is it referring to? We have no plurals beforehand. Nec quid, singular. Nothing in this other clause to indicate what this is. Well, delicias means allurement, charms, delights. So what I think is going on here, and my guess, is that since this is accusative, we should take it as another object of ardebat, or take it as an object of the main verb of this next clause. So this is another thing for which Corydon is burning, desiring, or it's something that Corydon does not, whatever this clause says. So I'm just going to write down, let's go with delights, because, well, del right there. And then domini. And we can assume his, because Corydon is our subject here, and he's a shepherd. And that means that he's then a slave. So would of course have a master. And I think the name of the master, who we may run into either later in this eclogue or in one of the later eclogues, is a guy by the name of Iollas, Iollas. Don't have the meaning for that offhand, but I will when we get to the name, unless I forget exactly like I did with Alexin. All right, nec nor quid. Since we have quid after nec, this could be an aliquid after si, nisi, num, and ne, and sometimes other words like nec, because nec is a negative. I don't know if that's the case here, though according to my notes, which I have just out of the screen, at least when I wrote the notes months and months and months ago, I thought ali was appropriate. So anything, otherwise it would just be nor what, and then speraret. We have the re from the infinitive stem, and then our t for the third person singular. The personal endings on a infinitive of a verb, especially since it's the present infinitive, tells us that this is going to be an imperfect subjunctive. Third person singular, imperfect subjunctive, active. Probably throw that in there. So then that means we've got some sort of subjunctive clause going on. Since it's not our main verb, we need to look ahead to habebat. Habebat, of course, matching the tense of ardebat. I'm just going to pull that down here. So nor was he having, and then we enter our subjunctive clause right there, anything he was hoping. Well, that's a bit odd in English, so then we're going to need to change it around a little bit to understand it better. And that means changing the subjunctive clause into a clause that fits into English. Nor was he having anything for which to hope is how we could put it. It's kind of clunky, but that's the way English works. And that would mean that we change the imperfect subjunctive into an infinitive, and that'll often happen in English and back and forth, of course. Nor was he having anything for which to hope, nor was he having any hope for something, is the other way that we could put it, just getting rid of the verb in this altogether and doing a more, idiomatic English way of saying it. I might not be using the right word there, but I'm going to go with the first option. Nor anything for which to hope was he having. So then what that means there is that Corydon was burning for Alexin, possibly also for the delights of the master. I wonder if that might refer to like wine, the nice meats, food, stuff like that. I don't know. It's very unclear right there. But anyway, he was burning for Alexin. And it's apparent from this that either he approached Alexin and Alexin turned him down, or he knows that if he approached Alexin with his desire, that Alexin would turn him down. So that's what that tells us. Moving on, tantum inter, prepositional phrase right there, takes the accusative, which we see with densas. See if it continues. Ambrosa cacumena. So we've got a interjection in this prepositional phrase. We have phagos here. This is an adjective, and phagos is going to be the noun. And note that densas has the A right there, but phagos has the O. So then this means that phagos is, though a second declension noun, it is a feminine, one of the rare ones. Looking further ahead, adsidue, so that's the wrong form to be part of the prepositional phrase, so it must close off here. We still don't have our verb, but I need to finish writing this down. Plural, feminine. Come back to that in a minute. Adsidue, that's not going to be our verb, but we do have that E right there. I think the U is also long. It's for a adverb. And then veniebat, there is a verb. Note it's matching the tense of these two. So this is, Vergil is trying to emphasize the continuing action of Corydon. He was burning and is continuing to burn. He was having no hope and he's continuing not to have hope. And now we have continuing or repeated action with veniebat. So this means he was coming. So third singular imperfect active and indicative. So he was coming. Where was he coming? Inter densas phagos. So that would be among the thick. I should probably not write down the translation until I'm ready to put it in all the one long line. Sorry. Among the thick beech trees. Note that we have, I don't know, this is frustrating. We have a word here in English which used to mean sticks, but is now it's taken as a demeaning term and is used as a demeaning term, but used to just mean a bundle of sticks. So that would be the origin, this word right here, of the words for just bundle of sticks. Also note that the bundle of sticks word is related to the original word for fascism, because fascism is a bundle of sticks put together, harder to break. something along those lines. That's neither here nor there, but some derivations. Anyway, so now we come to Ambrosa. Kakumina. Kakumina is our noun, and we have the A right there. We already know that koredon is the subject, so it doesn't make sense for this to be the subject, particularly since it's neuter. So they've got an accusative plural neuter with Ambrosa modifying it. Ambrosa as an adjective meaning shady or cloudy, of course, from umber, cloud. So kakumina, what does that mean? It's the word that they use for the very tippy top of a mountain, or we could say the zenith of something. And since it's accusative, this could be taken as a alternate object or an assumed repetition of inter. Or we could take it without the preposition and treat it as a sort of specially functioning accusative, still showing location. So among the thick beech trees, on, that would be with accusative. So normally accusative with prepositions showing place shows motion, not always, because you've got ad, which can mean to, toward, or at, just present. So I think the third meaning of odd is how we should take this accusative. So I'm going to say accusative of, place. And there I go. Writing it down before I'm ready. Sorry. The tippy tops, the summits. I love the word zenith because it's got a Z in there. Let's go with zeniths. And underneath that, summits. Then tantum. Tantum, typically we will want to take as an adjective to modify something else, but plural, adverb. There's nothing for it to modify, which then means it must be something other than a adjective. And shouldn't be surprised by this, but somehow I always am when we come across one of these, is actually a accusative form adverb rather than the adjective we are used to seeing with tantum. And this means so great, so much. So then we have so great, so much, he was coming, which then I would presume we could take as, to say he was coming so often, except I would think we would have something like saipe there. The other possibilities are far, referring to how far away he's going, or could be taken to mean only. He was coming only up to this place in order to, have no hope, presume is how we could take it. Let's see. Try to piece this together out loud. So he was coming so far. Oh, and I forgot. Assidue. This means continually or without remission. So he was coming continually so far among the thick beech trees at the summits assumed of the mountain. And I think that makes sense for how we should write it, so that's what I'm going to write down. So there is that sentence. We can move on. Ibi, there in that place, seen it a lot. Hike, the often used for indefinite things or for speech. So not a verb. Incondita, adjective solus, montibus et solus, studio, jactebat, consistent tenses between them. So this is another continuous, ongoing, or I suppose we could take it as inceptive, but I don't think that makes much sense in the context available to us. I'm not going to bother parsing it since we've seen enough of them. Studio, here we have a ablative singular. This is studium, studii, so it's neuter. Just taking that one because it's close. There. Hike, incondita. Incondita is, of course, an accusative plural neuter. And this means disorderly or confused, or rough. Odd. I'm trying to figure out what this would refer to. But anyway, hike, this, hike, hike, hawk, matches it in form. Draw an arrow there. Solus, we have the US right there, so that's going to be nominative, singular, masculine, referring to Corydon as our subject, so he's alone, which should make sense with what's been going on before. Montibus, IBUS right there. Et connected to Silvis with IS, that's going to be a ablative of place, plural, mons, montis. Ooh, I've forgotten the gender of a mountain. I want to say feminine. Well, put that in a note, edit it in later. Silvis, this is of course also going to be ablative, plural, silva, silvi, yeah, feminine. This is just placeware again. Except the green and yellow, according to my notes, argues that the mountains and the trees here are dative. It says he's talking to them rather than he's on him. And then, frankly, that's actually a pretty good argument. We already know where he is because of this barely legible scrawl right here in my writing. So, as another location doesn't make sense. I think I'm going to side with the green and yellow. Go with dative as the better option. Except he's not speaking. He's throwing himself down, so it could be, but that would be ablative again. So then I think what's going on is the green and yellow is assuming a verb of speaking, since immediately after this colon, Corydon starts speaking, which then means I kind of need to put these in their own subclause at the end of the translation. But let's come back to that in a minute. Studio with the ablative is going to be an ablative of manner. But inani, with that I right there, genitive, singular, and either masculine or neuter, since it's not referring to a specific object that we have available to us here, and it's not referring to Corydon, I'm going to go with neuter indefinite to talk about a concept or circumstances. Owning, studio, and then haec incondita. These confused, alone he cast himself down to, I think we almost have to assume a verb of speaking for this to make much sense, at least as well as I've been able to parse it out from my months old notes. Or it could be referring back to kakumina, since that is a match in gender. And then with the accusative, we would take it as the same function there. But already we don't really need to do that since it's already been stated. Then again, this is slightly poetic, so repetition is a big part of that, especially being very descriptive of the surroundings. You're trying to create a idyllic, in this case not so idyllic, picture. So I'm going to write down, I think, two options. Either it's telling us the location again, just telling us that kakumina are rough or disorderly. They're like rocky, we might think, or the growth is irregular, which means it's pretty high up. Or this is what he is saying to Montibus et Silvis. He's saying disorderly things, speaking in it. No, but we would expect an adverb or an ablative if it's the manner in which he is speaking. I think I've argued myself into saying that this has to be a redescription of kakumina. So let's put an arrow there, and let's put the translation down until we get to this. There, and we assume himself as the object of yakdebat. Technically, we could take incondita, but he was casting these rough. Oh, that is a possibility, actually. Back to the verb of speaking that we need to assume for these to be dative. It could be that this is assumed as an alternate way of a euphemism, if you will, for speaking. He was casting these rough things, he was casting these disorderly things to the mountains and the trees. I had, even in making the notes, this is one of the few things I remember doing, assumed this was talking about himself. We don't have him as an object. We don't have say to confirm or deny that. So I guess I do need to write down two different translations. I'll put the other one here, but continue with what I had already assumed. So that's the one way of translating it. And note, the other way that we could say this, studio inani, because it's a genitive describing studio, we could say with empty zeal or vain zeal. So that's the way that I'm going to translate the ablative of manner, or yeah, ablative of manner in the alternate translation. So starting at ibi, and there we have it. So let's take a look at what all of my illegible writing says. I'm sorry, I'm experiencing some terrible griffonage, but that's largely due to the space available. And it's been a long time since I've recorded a video. I had hoped, I think as of the publishing of this video, to have returned to the previous schedule of 2-1-2-1 a week. Gosh. 2 months ago. But life gets away from you. And life becomes really busy. So, before this drags on to be an hour-long video, the English. Shepherd doesn't have an E. And there's a random H in there. Sometimes I appear to spell things phonetically. Learning Hebrew, apparently. A shepherd, Corydon, was burning for beautifully formed Alexis, delights of his master, nor anything for which to hope was he having. He didn't have anything to hope for. Continuously so far away, he was coming at the zeniths among the thick beech trees. There at these rough zeniths, alone he was casting himself with zeal of emptiness to the mountains and trees. Or, there alone he was flinging about these disorderly things to the mountains and trees with vain zeal. All right. Thank you very much for joining me and putting up with my rambling. I will try to be a bit more concise going forward. I guess my voice just needed to be exercised. Well, you have a very good life. Wale.